Hello and welcome to our roundup of the best Garmin watches for runners available in 2025. We've got a whole load of Garmin chat about to come your way with our top picks of the various Garmin range divided up into several different categories, including options like Garmin's for beginners, Garmin smartwatches, best Garmin's flat out, best value Garmin's. All of that is about to come your way. We've been testing Garmin's for over a decade and have covered the entire current range and especially all of the watches in the range that are aimed at runners, so can hopefully really laser in on the best options in these categories and how they compare to the other options in the range. And then in our best value category at the end, we'll be taking a deeper dive into how the current range compares to some of the older models available from Garmin that we still think are very much worth checking out, especially if you can find them in the sales. So without further ado, let's dive into a whole load of Garmin watch chat.
When it comes to the best watch for beginners, we've looked at watches that balance affordability, ease of use and simplicity with enough features to support your running right now, but also with a bit of headroom should things get more ambitious. And our top pick in the Garmin lineup for this is the Garmin Forerunner 165. It takes most of the more useful tools and features that you find on Garmin's premium watches and distills them into a more compact, more basic, somewhat cheaper model with a killer bright AMOLED display. The Garmin Forerunner 165 dropped into Garmin's busy running watch lineup between the Forerunner 55 and the Forerunner 265, more recently the Forerunner 570, which kind of replaces that, but it's still Garmin's cheapest dedicated running watch to pack a bright AMOLED touchscreen. It comes in two flavours. There's the Forerunner 165 and the Forerunner 165 Music. The only difference, barring the price, is the additional offline music storage, playback and support for streaming services like Spotify and Deezer that you get on the Music Edition. Forerunner 165 packs a smaller 1.2-inch screen. It's got a lighter build with more basic materials and more lightweight plastic feel than the more premium watches that come higher up in Garmin's food chain. But that lighter build has its benefits when it comes to comfort. It's a watch you can happily wear 24/7 to unlock the daily insights around activity, stress and sleep, so it's good when you're not running as well. When you are running, you get a pretty comprehensive array of Garmin's regular run tracking tools. There's plenty here to cater for most runners across training and racing. In fact, while you're running, the Forerunner 165 offers largely the same features, experience and performance as the much pricier Forerunner 265. The battery life could be better, but if you're mainly concerned with what happens during the run, you're getting a happily reliable, largely fully featured run tracker at a price that represents good value. Other notable options for beginners include the Forerunner 55. Even though this is getting old and the old school screen is no match for the shiny smartwatch style screen of the Forerunner 165, the 55 remains a neat little watch that does the basics well. It's a good entry level option with enough run tracking and general health and fitness smarts to cover the needs of most beginner runners or anyone who just wants the simple stats. It's also an excellent option for anyone looking to take a step up from a basic fitness tracker to a more dedicated running watch. Then there's the Garmin VivoActive 6, which straddles the line between fitness tracker, smartwatch and sport watch and does a genuinely good job. It's gradually becoming a fairly serious training tool. It doesn't boast all the Garmin's most advanced training tools and insights, but it offers plenty of firepower for runners, general fitness pursuits and tracking daily health. With just one 42mm size, it's neat, compact, capable and comfortable with an AMOLED screen and a good selection of running and training smarts and pretty reliable heart rate and GPS. So if you're looking for a basic run tracker in a wrist-friendly design, it's got credentials.
This section keeps things simple in that we're picking out the Garmin that we think is the flat-out best option for runners, which generally means it's the watch we're wearing ourselves when we're not testing something new. Our top pick is the Garmin Forerunner 970, which brings all of Garmin's best features for runners into a lighter and sleeker watch than models like the Garmin Fenix 8. The design is a significant upgrade on the previous model, the Garmin Forerunner 965, with a new sapphire crystal display that's harder to scratch, plus a built-in flashlight, the latest and best Garmin optical HR sensor, and a brighter display. Making the design more durable was certainly a key factor in us picking the Forerunner 970 over the Fenix 8 in this category, because although the Fenix is still a hardier watch, the Forerunner 970 strikes a great balance between comfort, size and durability. The Forerunner 970 matches the Fenix 8 for all the key features you need as a runner, including reliably accurate tracking, extensive training analysis including Garmin's new running tolerance and economy measurements, and detailed offline maps and smart routing tools. It's a lighter and more comfortable watch for runners than the Fenix and has a brighter 1.4-inch AMOLED screen. Despite this big bright display, the 4 and a 970 still offers solid battery life, lasting us about 4 or 5 days on a charge when running every day with the screen set to always on. You do have to pay a premium to get the Garmin 4 and a 970, even though it's more affordable than the Fenix 8, but for performance and design it gets our nod as our top pick overall for runners. Running it very close, however, is the Garmin Fenix 8, which costs you more, but has a more durable and arguably more attractive design. The metal bezel is thicker on the Fenix, and it has a metal caseback, and it's a dive-proof watch, which doesn't mean a lot to us as runners, but it is a more waterproof watch than the 4 and a 970. There are also multiple models of the Fenix 8 to pick from, including 3 sizes and a choice between an AMOLED or a memory and pixel display, with the latter also having solar charge to boost battery life. Battery life is certainly another area where the Fenix 8 does outshine the 4 and a 970, even if you opt for an AMOLED Fenix, and the largest 51mm models of the watch are incredibly long-lasting. It's certainly another strong option if money is no object, even if we just prefer the svelter design of the 4 and a 970 ourselves.
Our top Garmin smartwatch pick is the Garmin Venue X1, a watch it's fair to say took us a bit by surprise when it landed. This is Garmin's largest square watch with a hulking 2-inch AMOLED display that's great for features like viewing maps and makes its large case size more manageable by measuring at just 7.9mm thick. On the smartwatch features front, you're getting the best that Garmin has to offer. Better notification support than any other sports watch, new voice-enabled features like Bluetooth calls and the ability to record voice notes, as well as enough storage to pile on your own music or from music streaming services like Spotify. In terms of run tracking, while you do miss out on Garmin's great multi-band GPS, we've found the GPS support that is there to be solid on the whole. It's also getting new running tolerance and running economy metrics post-launch to give it more of the latest training insights. You will need to make do with shorter battery life than most other Garmin's, especially if you keep the screen on at all times, along with spending more time tapping on the touchscreen. But these are things that are manageable for a Garmin that strikes a good balance between sports watch and smartwatch. If the Venue X1 is a bit too pricey for you, we'd also recommend looking at the Garmin Vivo Active 6. The Vivo Active line was Garmin's original smartwatch, but like the Venue, has a similar button and AMOLED screen setup with a minimalist round case design. It sticks close to the design of the Vivo Active 5, which means it does come in just a single size, but does pack in a pretty punchy colour display. As a smartwatch, you're getting an up-to-date version of Garmin's operating system, a decent 8GB of storage for apps and music, Garmin Pay and notification support that is richer if you pair it up with an Android phone. Like the Venue, it doesn't include Garmin's latest dual-band GPS setup, but the multi-GNSS one performed well in our tests. It also doesn't include Garmin's latest Elevate heart rate sensor technology, but does allow you to connect external heart rate sensors for a more accurate hit of heart rate data. On the training front, you get access to all of Garmin's latest coach plans, including strength ones. There's workout animations to follow, and it does dish out training insights like training effect and HRV status to make it a more useful training companion. Battery life can max out to 12 days and drops to 5 days with the screen on 24/7. It falls a little short of those numbers, but it's certainly enough to get the most out of this tidy package where there's a lot more to like for runners on a very different budget.
If your top priority is big battery and big durability, then the Garmin Enduro 3 is our top pick. It's rugged, adventure ready and pretty fully featured, though maybe not as comprehensive as the Fenix 8 that now has the AMOLED screen option, new voice tools among other updates. But if staying power is something that you're really looking for, the Enduro 3 is a great option. It combines satisfying build, solid durability, impressive training tools and good navigation smarts into a Phoenix-esque design that's lighter. It comes in 63 grams compared to the lightest Phoenix, which weighs in at 72 grams. But the standout reason to buy it is that it packs the longest battery life you'll find on any Garmin GPS watch. On paper, the solar harvesting Garmin Enduro 3 battery life is the best in the running watch business. Even without the solar smarts, the Enduro 3 offers incredible staying power, between 60 and 210 hours of GPS tracking depending on your settings. And if you take your training and endurance experiences seriously and to wilder places, it's right in the mix as one of the best running watches to buy for exactly that. It keeps things simple with 151mm size and style, with a stripped back classic black titanium bezel and back, plus a tough sapphire crystal screen. It now comes in cheaper than the cheapest Fenix 8 AMOLED. It's also cheaper than the cheapest Fenix 8 Solar model, the Garmin Fenix 8 Solar 47. Basically, if long battery life is your number one, there isn't a multi-sports watch to rival the endurance of the Garmin Enduro 3. But beyond the Enduro 3, if you want the full package of rugged durability, a very good long haul battery life, and that smartwatch standard bright AMOLED display, plus the full suite of Garmin's training, racing, navigation, health, recovery and smartwatch tools, then the Fenix 851mm AMOLED is definitely the way to go. You'll pay a premium for it, but the Fenix 8 is Garmin's most complete watch. If you want something rugged but a little more compact and a whole lot more affordable, then the Garmin Instinct 3 is another strong alternative. It now offers the choice of battery boosting solar or bright AMOLED options. It offers an appealing mix of lighter wearable, rugged design with a good sweep of sports tracking and adventure tools, plus long-lasting GPS battery life. It's a kind of Fenix Lite almost. However, there are some important omissions. If you want offline mapping, streaming music or a touchscreen, you're going to need to look elsewhere, and the lack of offline maps is a big miss here in what is essentially an adventure watch. But if that's not your need, then the Instinct 3 is a great little sturdy running tool with good staying power to rival those bigger endurance watches.
Welcome to the final section of the video, which is the best value Garmin, which we're going to do a bit differently to the other sections in this video. Instead of just having one top pick and maybe one or two also mentions, I'm going to run through a few older Garmin watches that are nearly always in sales now and offer a really good value option within the range as a result of that. In general, you're not going to find a lot of value by going for the latest Garmins. Like, the price of them continues to rise, especially this year, and even if you do want the latest model, it is worth waiting a few months if you can to see if its price starts to drop in sales periods. And certainly the best value is to be found on older models of Garmin watches that are, still very, very good sports watches and maybe have nearly all the features available on the newer watches, but are coming in a lot cheaper because they are older models. So I've got a few models we're going to run through here, and I'll tell you how they compare to the latest models that have come out, so you know what you might be missing out on by not going for a newer watch. One thing I will say in general, across the board, if you go for an older Garmin watch, you're probably not going to get a lot in the way of software updates going forward. So when new features come out, Garmin doesn't have the best track record of rolling these back to older watches, so if you do go for the latest model, you are a bit more future-proof into that regard. But all the watches we have picked out in this section have all the features you need already, and they should still be supported well enough in terms of maintenance and that kind of thing, so they are still worth looking at. But yeah, you're not going to be getting the latest features, which will be reserved for the newer models. So starting at the cheaper end of the scale, the older models that are worth checking out if you're looking for a mid-range watch or a beginner watch are the Garmin Forerunner 255 and Forerunner 265. So the latest mid-range Garmin is the Forerunner 570, which has a very bright display. It's a very good looking watch. It has a mic and speaker, but the older model in particular, the Forerunner 265, is also a really nice AMOLED watch. It matches the sports features pretty much on the Forerunner 570 across the board. You're getting slightly better battery life on the older watch as well, because even though it has a nice AMOLED display, it's not as bright as the new watch, and it's coming in significantly cheaper in sales. That's definitely one worth checking out if you're looking for a mid-range watch. The Forerunner 255 doesn't have an AMOLED screen, so if you're looking for a memory and pixel watch, this would be a good option. It's now a couple of generations old and missing some features like training readiness, as well as the more attractive AMOLED displays that are available on the newer watches, but it is still really good. If you can find that in a sale, it's becoming a little bit harder to find now. That is a really solid beginner watch that you could look at in the Garmin range in sales. Then another really good older watch that might well be the best value watch on the market pound for pound from any brand is the Garmin Forerunner 965. So this has now been superseded by our top watch overall, the Garmin Forerunner 970, but the 965 is now coming in cheaper, actually, I think, even than the Forerunner 570 in sales. It is a full AMOLED sports watch with all of Garmin's mapping tools on it, which you don't get on the mid-range watches like the 570 or the 265. It's got a load of great training analysis, very accurate dual band tracking. There are some upgrades on the Forerunner 970 that might be worth considering, like the new sapphire crystal display, the built-in flashlight, the better heart rate monitor, some of the new running technique stats you get on the watch, but the core experience you get with the 965 is still incredible. And like I say, it's coming in cheaper even than the newest mid-range models from Garmin, whilst having top tier features, so definitely one to look at. Then the previous model in that range is the Forerunner 955, another one that is starting to become a little bit harder to find in sales, but when it is there, it is very cheap, and that again has maps. It's a memory and pixel watch, so if you do want one of those instead of an AMOLED watch, that's a really good value option to look at, because you are getting, again, extensive training analysis, all of Garmin's key mapping and routing tools, and really reliable tracking in general with that watch as well. Then if you're looking for alternatives to the Garmin Fenix 8, which is a very expensive watch, it's fair to say, you've got two lines to look at. Because the Fenix 8 has the AMOLED and the solar models, you've got the Garmin Epix Pro, which is the previous AMOLED watch in the range, which is very close to the Fenix 8 in terms of all-round capability, I would say. You're missing out on some of the new running technique stats. You don't get a dive-proof watch, the mic and speaker, but you are getting things like a built-in flashlight. The range of sizes are really nice. Really nice materials, the exact same materials really you're getting on the Fenix 8 all-round. Very good sports tracking. Again, like I say, you are now going to start missing out on some of the new software updates in terms of things like running economy and that kind of thing. But the Epix Pro is still a phenomenal sports watch, and it's coming in so much cheaper than the Fenix 8 in sales now. I do think that is the value option. Same goes for the Garmin Fenix 7 Pro as an alternative to the Fenix 8 Solar. That's a fantastic memory and pixel watch with nearly all of Garmin's best stuff on it, just missing out on that dive-proof design. The improved solar charging you are getting on the newer models, that's one thing you don't get on the Fenix 7 Pro, but it does still have solar charging there. Same goes for the Enduro 2 as another memory and pixel option. That's an alternative to the Enduro 3. These are watches worth looking at because when the price is so high, there's a lot of room for it to be discounted. And the Epix Pro, Fenix 7 Pro, Enduro 2 are definitely watches I'd be looking at in the sales coming up. If you do want a top-tier Garmin, don't necessarily need a dive-proof watch, and the very latest in terms of running features and that kind of thing, because they'll all be going for a relative song. They'll still be expensive, but they'll be a fair bit cheaper than the Fenix 8. And one last watch I'll shout out as a good value option is the Garmin Epix 2, which is now getting on a bit, but it was one of my favourite watches of all time when it launched. The white sapphire titanium model of that watch in particular is one that has been a star feature in sales of dropping to well under half the price of the new Fenix 8. And then that's an AMOLED watch, it's got maps, it's a fantastic watch with really good sports tracking, training analysis. There's only one size, there's no flashlight, it hasn't got the latest software and all that kind of stuff, no dive-proof design or anything like that, but a brilliant watch, and one that maybe now is past its peak in terms of sales because it was getting reduced so much. It might not happen so much going forward, but the Epix 2 could still be due one last big round of discounts this year, and that I love that watch. And even though it's not going to be getting much in the way of software features or anything like that, even less than probably stuff like the Epix Pro, it's a fantastic tracker for runners, and like I say, has been reduced very heavily of late. That's our roundup of the best Garmins for runners available in 2025. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe, ring the little bell, and we will see you next time.